Hello, and good morning. So today, the lecture that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be introducing 3 new commands. So these are very simple commands. Basically, we're going to insert rows into a table. We're going to use the update command to update existing rows in tables, and we'll use the delete command to delete data from tables. Okay, now if you have the book, chapter 7 goes through all of these commands and gives lots of good examples to follow up with what I'm going to cover here. So the first command we'll look at is inserting data into the database, and that's using the insert command. Okay, so here's our basic syntax. We say insert into, we give a table name. Now, whenever we see the square brackets, that means it's optional. So optionally, we can specify the column names we're going to use to insert. We don't have to do that though. We can omit that and just go to the values and then just basically pump out all of the different values that we're going to be inserting. If we don't specify the column names, then for values, we have to specify in order the same data types that match the columns in the table. So we'll be seeing this in a few examples that I'm going to do. If you do specify the column names, then you can even change the order up and arrange it however you want. You can also omit default value and null value columns completely, which you can't do if you're going to skip that part. Okay, so some other things. We're only adding 1 row at a time to a table. If we have non-numeric data, so that would be varchar, char, or date, we need to enclose that in single quotes. If the date is in a correct format, it'll be converted to a date object. Okay, and it says here, if the column list is not provided, as I mentioned, a value will be assigned to each column in the table. Okay, so we've got this table here, this account manager table. And we can see here that there's well, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 6, 7 columns in this table. And we have several different data types. We have date, we have varchar, we have number types. Some of them have constraints. So we have a not null constraint, we have a primary key, and we have a check constraint. We also have 1 default value. And just to review, a default value means that if no value is entered for that column, the default value will be given. Okay, so let's quickly, well, let's keep going actually. Okay, so I have some data here that I'm going to be adding to this table. And we have the 7 columns listed here. And you'll notice that in the second entry, the region is omitted, but region doesn't have a not null constraint, so that means we can add a null value to that column. Okay, so let's switch over now to Oracle, and I have shown here, I've basically copied the statement for creating the table, account manager. So now I can go ahead and do my insert statements. So I'm actually going to create a new script here. And I will copy because I need to connect to the EX user. So you'll notice here I have the EX user open, and I have the table added to it. I'll just refresh that really quickly. Okay, so there's my account manager table. It's been added. And okay, so I've connected here, and now let's just do, these are all really simple examples. So the first one, I'm just following off the notes here, is insert into account manager. And then I'm just going to specify the values, and because I'm not specifying the columns in this case, I have to give entries for all of the values. So the first one is going to be T500, then Nick, then Taylor, then we have a date. So we go with month, so 05, or sorry, be a month, day, month, and year. Okay, 09. And then the next value for 42,000, 3,500, and then NE. Okay, so I have all those values added. Now, if I go back and take a quick look at the actual table, I'll see that these values match up. So the first one is AMID. So that is a char, 4 bytes. So I have 4 characters. I'm inserting the value T500 there. AM first and AM last, that's the name Nick and then Taylor. And that's varchar with a maximum length of 12. Then I have a date, which I'm specifying as the 5th of September, 2009. Then I have an AM SAL, which I guess is a salary. It's 42,000. And then AM COMM, I'm not sure what that represents, but that is 3,500. And then region is NE, and that's a char type of 2 bytes. Okay, so let's try running this. Hopefully this will work. Uh-oh. Okay, I created the table, account manager, ACCT manager. Okay, I hit the wrong button, that's all. I hit the wrong button. So 1 row inserted, that row has now been added to my table. And of course, if I go here and I look at the data, there we go. We've got that piece of information added. All right, so let's continue on. So I'll just come back to these notes here. This is the one we just did, the most simple example you could possibly do. We've got a few more here. Now you'll notice this next one, we're specifying the column. So we're saying insert into account manager, and then we're specifying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're only specifying 6 of the columns, and the reason being is we're omitting one, but the one we're omitting is one that takes a null value. And that column, I believe, is the region. And the region allows, it doesn't have any constraints there, so we can do a null value. So when you omit it, null gets added by default. Okay, we've got a few more examples here. So now they're going insert into account manager. They're not specifying the columns. This is the second one, but instead they are using an empty string to put in the region. Now that seems like a bad idea. I think that's probably, this example is probably put there to show you what not to do. You're better off inserting a null value, or doing what was done in the first one, where they just omit that column completely. So let's pick one of these to do. Let's do the first one, because we haven't done an example where we're specifying the columns. Okay, so I'll go back to here. Okay, so I'll remove this because we've already inserted there. Actually, I'll just modify it to have the new data. So insert into account manager, and now I'm going to specify the columns. So AMID, then AM first, AM last, AME date, AM SAL, and then AM COMM. So, okay, that would be commission. So salary and then commission. And then the values I want is, the first one is 15 or L500. Then Mandy Lopez. And then 1st of September 2009. The base salary is 47,000 and the commission is 1,500. And we omit, we do not add in, we just leave that column blank for the region. So let's run this. Okay, so I had a little issue here, AME date. Okay, let's take a look at the actual column. So I have AME date, yeah, that looks right. Oh, it's 80 AME. Okay, there we go. There we go. All right, that could have been there a while. All right, we got that sorted. So let's run this again. Okay, there we go. So we inserted the row. Now, if we go back to our account manager, we can look at our data. And I guess we need to refresh this. And there we go. Now we can see that we have another one, Mandy Lopez, and the region is null. Okay, good. So let's, we can continue on here. All right, so they're just showing the examples. All right, so the next one is inserting a default value. So in our case, when we look at the data, the columns, we have two default values here. So the AME date, if you don't specify it, if you omit it when you do your insert, it'll put today's date or the current date, the sys date. And if the AM commission, if you don't put anything, it assumes a commission of 0 and 0 gets added there. Okay, so let's look back here at the examples they have. So they're doing a couple inserts, insert into account manager. They're specifying in this case, 6 of the columns. The one that is not specified is the AME date. So they're leaving that empty, and then that way the current date will end up being added. So let's do this one really quickly. So I'll go back here, and I'm inserting into account manager. I have AMID, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm gonna remove AME date, and I'm going to put back in the region. Now, if I were to run this right now, I would have a problem because the data types don't match. For example, region and 1500 don't match. Region is a 2-byte char. So I need to make sure that all of these match. Whatever values have to always match my columns. So in this case, I remove that. And then I need to put in my region. Okay, now this actually would execute, but I want to modify the value so it adds the new person. And it wouldn't work because I would have a primary key. Okay, let's just see. I would have a primary key violation if I did that because I believe the primary key is the AMID. Yeah, there we go. So we have a unique constraint, account manager, PK violated. So I need to change that, and that's going to be J500. And the name is Sammy Jones. Okay, just putting in the values here. Okay, so let's run this. Okay, one row is inserted. Now let's go take a look at the table, and we should see for the date that we omitted, it'll have a value of today. Okay, there we go. And we can see right there that we have the 15th of May, 2020. Okay. So the other example they do is, in this case, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They have all 7. But here, they're specifying the default keyword, okay? So that would be another way of doing it. You can either omit it, just don't put that column there, or you can put the default, just use the keyword default, and it'll know to use the default value. Now, in this case, they didn't need to. They could have removed these columns, and they could have just gone insert into account manager values because they're specifying all of the columns there. All right, let's keep going. All right, so they're just showing the examples that we just did here, inserting. Okay. All right. Now we did one. It turned out we ended up doing one sort of off-the-cuff example where there was a constraint violation, and that's something that can come up at any time when you're inserting. For example, that case we had a primary key violation. You might also often have foreign key violations. If you specify a column that has a foreign key constraint and the table that it references doesn't actually have that value available, it's not going to let you insert that value. Same if you have a check constraint or a not null constraint or a unique constraint. Any of these constraints will give you an error message when you try to insert. So they're just showing another example here. We have a table order items, and they're just highlighting the fact that there's constraints here. We have a primary key constraint, we have a foreign key constraint, and we have a check constraint. So when they go to do some of these inserts, they potentially will have problems. Now the primary key is a composite key. Order number and item number, that's the primary key. So if you look here, this first entry, order number is 1020 and item number is 1. So I guess that would work actually. I don't see a primary key constraint violation there because it's gonna combine both of them. So these three are actually unique. Let's see what it says here. So insert into order items 1020 and 1. Okay, I'm not sure why they're getting a primary key violation there. Okay. Now also they could have a foreign key violation. Let's see here, the ISBN, order number. Okay, so order number is a foreign key, and that's in another table. So if order, for example, 1021 doesn't actually exist, that's going to be a problem when they try to insert that. Okay, and then they also show an example where there's a check constraint violation. So in that situation, the check constraint is that the order item's quantity, which is the fourth column, that has to not only be not null, but it has to be greater than 0. And in this case, they're trying to insert 0, basically a value of 0 there. So of course, they're going to get a check constraint error. Okay, so another example that we have with when we do these insert, update, or delete is you have the ability to use a subquery. Now I don't want to go into this too much because subqueries is something we'll be covering down the road. It's a more, I guess, slightly more advanced feature. Not that it's anything that complex, but it does come up in Chapter 7 and in these notes here. So when you use a subquery, you can basically grab data from another table or from the same table and do some modification to it or whatever you want, and then allow it to be inserted. So basically the subquery, normally it would be inserted into table name values, and you'd specify your values. Here you basically are using a subquery to get the values for you. So we can probably do a simple example of this. Let's see here. Okay, so they've got an example where they have a table called account bonus, and they're inserting 3 of the values, so the AMID, the salary, and region, into this account bonus table. And they're doing a select query from account manager. So we should be able to set this up. I can probably create this account bonus table, and then we can then do a subquery to basically grab data from the account manager table and put it into the account bonus table. So let me try doing that now. So I'm coming over to here. I've got my table account manager, so I need, I'll just copy these here. Okay, so it's basically, all right, now I don't want to drop this table because I want to have some values there, so I'm going to create a new script. All right. Okay, so we'll just start with this here. So this is going to be called account bonus, ACCT bonus. And we have AM char, we'll get rid of these. And the next one is salary, and then region. Okay. So I'll run this. Okay, so all right. So the problem I had here is I copied everything and I left my constraints name the same. So I need to change these constraint names. Okay, there we go. So that worked. So now let's go back to here and I'll do my insert. So I'm going to say insert into account bonus. And I want AM ID, AM salary. In this case, I can actually leave these out because there's only those 3 columns in the table. So there's no need to specify them. I'm gonna basically grab this up in order. So now I'm gonna do my select statement. So select AM ID, AM salary, and region from account manager. Okay. All right, that looks good. Let's try this out. Okay, now in this case, because I used the subquery, it inserted 3 rows. So it went through and it grabbed every single value, every single row from the account manager table, and it inserted those values into the account bonus table. So let's take a look at the data now in the account bonus table. Okay, and there we go. We've grabbed those values, the region, the salary, and the AM ID. Okay. So that's a pretty powerful thing to do. So like an example where using a select or a subquery for inserts, that would be if you wanted to, for example, do a backup. If you had a table you were going to work with, but you wanted to back up that data first, you could create a table that has all of the same columns, all the same data types, basically constraints even, and then you would just do an insert into this new table, and then you would do a subquery select from the table you're going to work on, that it would just grab all the values and move them over to the new table. All right, so we've done that example. And then, well, yeah, I mean, I keep going and looking up the data in Oracle Developer, but I could just do this as well. I could go, let's see here. I'm just gonna comment that. So I could go select star from bonus. And there we go. We get the data output for us. Okay, so that wraps up just an introduction to using insert command. We'll be, obviously practicing this in upcoming assignments. The next one we'll look at now is update. So this is a case where we already have some data in our database, and we want to modify some of those, some of the columns potentially. Okay, so let's see here. What does this say? So update command, modify rows, use update to add values to an existing row. So it could be that you have a row and there's a bunch of null values, or maybe there's some default values. You want to go modify them. In the case of the null ones, you want to actually provide a value. So you can go and do that. The other thing is just updating an existing value. You have a last name that was entered wrong. You can go in and do an update command and change that. If someone gets a raise, you can go in and you can modify their salary using an update command. All right, so here's our syntax. So it's update, we specify a table name, and then we basically say set column name equal new data value. or we do a subquery. So expression would be a subquery. So we would say set column name equal, and then we would do some sort of expression or subquery potentially. And then additionally, optionally, we can specify a where condition. So we only update the values based on certain conditions. Okay. All right, so we've a really simple example here for account manager. We're setting the AME date equal to the 1st of August, 2009. So let's do that example. So I'm coming into, just comment this out. Okay, so update ACCT manager, set AME date equal to okay. Now, one of the things these commands that we're looking at today, they're very, very powerful. So if I were to run this here, and I'll do this just as an example, it is going to change every column in that table to this date. So I'll run this, and notice 3 rows updated. And that's probably not what I wanted to do. So now if I go and select all of those, I'm going to see every column has the exact same date. So you have to be really careful when you're using this. It's very easy to accidentally forget that you also want to do a where clause. So you can also specify, you're typically going to specify a where clause, and this is where you're going to basically indicate which rows or filter the rows that you actually want to have updated. So where AMID equals, and I'll just go J500, and I'm going to just change the date now so we'll be able to see that it's a different date. So I'll say the 5th of August. And now I'll run this, and now only 1 row is updated. So I mean, you can imagine if you had a table that had thousands of entries, and you wanted to update just 1 or maybe a set of rows, and you accidentally forgot the where clause, now it's going to go through and clobber all that data. So that is a bit of an issue. Now, fortunately, there is what's called transaction control in these databases. So even though it seems like these changes are permanent, they're actually not permanent. I can issue what's called a rollback command, and when I do that, it's going to then undo the last series of changes since what's called the last commit. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind as well. There is some safety built into this. Okay, so we just did that command. I'm going to just put this on one line here, even though it's kind of ugly, just so I can comment it out, and then we can look at the data. So select everything from account manager. Okay, and there we go. And we can see that only the one J500 AMID has the date of the 5th of August. Okay, so let's keep going. So another example, they're doing a where clause. So update account manager, set the region to, I guess, the west region, where region is in northeast or northwest. Okay, and in that case, 2 rows were updated. Another example, update account manager, set the date and the region where the AMD is L500. Okay, so let's do, we can do just another example here. Okay, so update account manager, set AME date. I'll change it to the 12th of August. And we'll also do another one. So we'll say region equals S. So we can basically specify a comma separated list of all of the different columns we want to change, where AMID, we'll change it to L500. So that's going to be Mandy Lopez. And let's run this. And there we go. We can now see those changes take effect. The region is now south for Mandy Lopez, and it's the 12th of August. All right. Now, in addition to specifying their values in the where clause, we can also modify our update query to basically prompt the user for the input. And we just do that using substitution variables. So we use the ampersand preceding a variable name. So this gives some interactivity to our commands here. All right, so let's try one. So update customers, set region equal to region, where state equals state. Okay, so I'll just make up one for the account manager. So I'm gonna say set AME date equal to, actually, let's go AM first equal to okay, where AMID equals all right, so this would be a situation where someone's name was typed wrong, and you can run this and it'll allow, it's basically a simple command that'll allow you to update the name. So let's try this out. So enter a value for first. So I'm gonna change this to being, okay. So I'm gonna say the first name should be Eric, and the AMID for this person, in this case it's J500. So I'm changing the name from Sammy to Eric. Okay, and there we go. Now we can see that it's Eric Jones. And of course, we can use these select variables in many different statements. The example here is just in an update one, but it can also be in an insert, delete, select, update will allow us to do that as well. All right, so we're moving pretty quick here. The last one we're gonna do is deleting rows. So this is using the delete command, and it just simply removes a row from a table. It can also remove several rows from a table, so we do have to be very careful. This is probably the most dangerous one, of course, and omitting the where clause, that's gonna remove every single row. So you really have to be careful with this. So the syntax is delete from, you specify a table name, and then you have a where condition that you're going to use. So in this case, we have delete from account manager, where AMID equals J500. So that's gonna just completely remove that one row. So let's execute this. I'm just gonna comment these out again. So delete from manager where AMID equals J500. So that's gonna delete Eric Jones, and I'll run this. And there we go. Now we only have 2 records. One row was deleted. Okay. So yeah, they've just gone and they've just done the select statement as well, just to see what the values are. And then they can see that that person is gone. Okay, so one thing that we're not gonna get into too much in this video, but there is a statement called a commit statement. And basically when you're doing an insert, an update, or a delete, those changes are not gonna be permanent. And for good reason, because it's very easy to make a simple mistake. So if you want to make them permanent, you have to use the commit statement. I think it depends on how the database is set up as well. When you close the database, it may do a commit as well. If you create a table, there's certain commands that will basically implicitly, they will perform a commit. But if you haven't done one of those things, then you still have the option of issuing what's called a rollback command, which will remove any of the last insert, updates, or deletes since the last commit. Okay, so that's the next basically thing here that is discussed. So I could do, let's just quickly demonstrate this. So I can issue a commit command now. So I'll comment this out. Okay, so you can see here commit complete. So now let's do a command where I'll just delete everything from the account manager table. So I'm gonna go delete from account manager, and I'm gonna forget my where clause. Whoops. So we'll run this, 2 rows are deleted, then when I do my select, there's nothing there. And I'm like, oh no, I've deleted everything. So it's no big deal, I can just do a rollback command. Uh-oh. Okay, so I didn't practice this before. So the rollback was completed, but it did not work. So that could be because my setting is that I basically auto commit. So I need to type this in now. Basically, let's just look at what it says here. So depending on the system, setting inserts, updates, and deletes may or may not be permanently saved. So I'm gonna guess now, after trying that mine are permanently saved. So normally the default is to not permanently save them. That's what you would expect, but it may be the case. So let's look at this command here, show auto commit. So I'm gonna type this in. Show auto commit. Auto commit is off. So changes are not automatically saved. It's better to have control over. Well, then I'm a bit confused there because I thought I committed, then I deleted, and then I rolled back. Okay, so let's move on just a little bit here. So if auto commit is off, which it is in my case, then results of any statements like update, insert, delete, they're not permanently updated to the table until explicit or implicit commit occurs. So an implicit commit occurs when you exit Oracle or if you use a create or alter table command. So I haven't done any of those things. Transaction control statements can commit data through, so you use the commit command. Undo data changes through rollback command. Okay, so let's try this again. Okay, so I'm going to go insert into account manager. Okay, so let's run this. Okay, there we go. Okay, commit. Okay, so we have commit complete. Okay, now we're going to run the delete from account manager. 1 row deleted, no rows. Comment this. And now I'm going to use my rollback command. Okay, so it's definitely not, doesn't seem to be working. The only thing I can think of is that the select command somehow causes it to implicitly do that. So let's try this one more time. Okay, there we go. We've got the person there. Comment that out. And I'm going to go delete. I'm not going to do my query. I'm just going to delete from Account Manager. I think I know. I think I have a guess now. Okay. So one row deleted. Yeah, this one's not going to work again, but I go delete and then I go roll back. And now I'll do my select. Okay, so it's not the select statement. What I think it is that this connect, when this script runs, it connects to a specific user, but then that connection ends. So essentially, that's causing the implicit commit when the connection ends to this, this user. So, a couple things I can try here. I'll do the insert again. There we go. Now I'll comment this out. Now I'm going to go delete. Sorry, no, I'm going to go commit. Okay, we committed that command. So now let's do the delete and roll back at the same time. So we're going to go delete, then roll back, and I think we will have the same, we will still have a person there. And I can even go, oops. So I'll delete, I'll do the select, then I'll roll back, I'll do the select. So we'll see the rollback in action. Let's just clear this. There we go, I did it. So one row deleted, no rows selected, rollback complete, and then we get the user because the rollback worked. When this script finishes executing, the connection to the EX user goes away, and that causes the implicit commit. Okay. So anyway, that's good to know. That's available, and when you're working on a production database, very important to make sure that you understand how the rollback is going to work, just in case you make a simple mistake. Okay, I'm gonna wrap things up there. So today's Friday, and I hope you guys are well on your way. I know some people have already submitted their assignments, which is great. Please get those assignments in so I can mark them and I'll get them back to you. Anyway, have a good weekend. And I'll be posting the next assignment shortly that we can get started on. Okay, bye.